this off, so hopefully we can all get out of here
Yeah.
and get this done.
Yeah.
All right. So, welcome everyone to the second meeting of the CIP committee for the calendar financial year 23. And before we get started tonight with business, I thought we'd just go around the table and have the committee members introduce themselves. And maybe we can start with Pete.
Start Pete Chabot, Mossfield Lake.
Wonderful. And I'm Paul Furs. I live on Chesley Hill Road.
Joe Tom, Lemonade Drive.
Michelle Rulo, David Lewis Drive.
All right, wonderful, thank you. We also have here tonight our town manager,
Jerry Douglas.
yeah, and our fire chief,
I go by Rob.
and our road commissioner.
Calvin Beaumier.
All right, excellent. All right, and a few audience members. So, tonight, what we're scheduled to cover here, and please let me know if I'm overlooking anything, but this is what I have on my list. The CIP process, to talk a little bit about the process and answer any questions that department heads might have about the process. Then second, this would be the opportunity for the department heads to talk about their applications. So, any additional information that they might wish to offer, and also for committee members to ask any questions they have of department heads. And generally what this committee does is we try to assemble questions from the previous meeting and then share them with the department heads in advance so that you have some idea of what the questions are that we're going to ask. You know, in case any of them require, you know, some research or anything like that. We don't want to blindside folks. The idea here is to really come up with a process that works and applications that are, you know, are in good shape and ready to go on to the next step, you know, the budget committee and the selectmen. So then finally, the committee members, after this meeting, after we talk about the applications this evening and, you know, get our questions answered, the next step in the process is for the committee members to do the scoring. And each committee member completes a score sheet for each application. And at the end of the process, those are then collated to arrive at a ranking of projects. And the purpose of the ranking is so that when the selectmen and the budget committee go to do their you know, piece, and once they do their operating budget and they look at where they stand with their operating budget, they can consider you know, how much they feel is available to address these other issues and how they rank. Any questions so far regarding tonight? All right, fantastic. Okay. So then let's get rolling with the conversation about process. I'd be glad to, or someone else on the committee could give an overview of the process if you think that would be helpful, or we can take specific questions. Either way, you guys think would be most effective for you.
Excuse me. It would be real effective for me to kind of understand the process, because as I work with the department heads and the committees, there seems to be a little bit of confusion on what we're actually trying to accomplish. And even for Peter being new, I'm sure he would like an idea of what the process is and what we're really trying to achieve with this committee. And it sounds like it's a ranking of the projects when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Because when I work with the department heads, they're kind of expecting numbers to be filled in.
Yep.
In places. And I, as the manager, to put in, I don't know what numbers to put in anywhere.
When you say put in numbers,
Well,
can you be a little more specific?
Yeah, let's look. let's do an example here. I have an example here, so these numbers here match the request that you got, the estimated cost,
Right?
okay? Oh, and by the way, I talked with the auditor, and she's not comfortable with these numbers for reserve balances, so she's gonna
Okay.
talk to Rue. We need to get to the bottom of that too before I don't know, I don't know what we have for reserve balances.
Well, hopefully we have a starting place for you to have that conversation with the auditor, because it is important that we figure out what those reserve balances are. And also important, I think, and I'm sure the auditors would probably agree with this, that we have separate reserve accounts.
We do, but the town of Durham has gone through the perfect storm with administrators leaving
Right.
with a lot of Excel spreadsheets that don't match up with one another. Someone new coming in and expected to figure that out
Sure.
is an expectation where you're gonna be very disappointed, because I'm here to tell you, I can't figure it out. There's just no way.
Okay.
That's the reality of it. It might disappoint you, but that is where we're at,
Yeah.
you know?
Well,
So-
then, I really think, given that, that's a really high priority, because without having, reserves set aside, the process doesn't really have a lot of weight. And, so if this is something that the selectmen have committed to, in terms of the policy and the process, we need to have those reserves.
I don't disagree, I just ain't gonna tell you what it is and have it be wrong, and then someone say, well, you told us this is what it was.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think we realize that there's some learning process in what's, where the budget stands currently today due to the way that the accounts have been set up and left. I think that aside, we need to just focus on, at least for the CIP, the rating and ranking of the projects, right, in a perfect world. We need to put some fiscal, thought to what those are they really needed from a fiscal perspective versus not? And then move from there to give our recommendation as a group to the select board to then decide, okay, there could be a separate issue with what's actually available right now. That's, I think, a separate discussion to have with the select board. And I think that this board, what we have for numbers in front of us, we're gonna go base our decisions on that. Now, and again, ours is not to decide where to necessarily, what to allocate, right? We're gonna go decide what is the most important for the town, what's in the best interest of the town from a priority standpoint. We do look at the fiscal aspect of it,
Okay,
but I'm not sure that holds us up from actually performing what the CIP is supposed to do, which is to vet out all the questions and the accountability behind each purchase, to go and then use that data to decide what's in the best interest of town to go and purchase first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Certainly, there's more scope in here to the CIP policy, but given the numbers we have in front of us, we can go make those decisions and move forward with this process to then pass on.
and once we're all on the same page of where we are financially with reserves and all that, we'll be in a better position. So the auditor is scheduled to come talk about the financial status of the town on the 27th.
Oh, okay.
The auditor is gonna talk to Ruth because their numbers don't agree.
I
So,
see.
so we're working on it, it's happening, but like right now, I just want you all to know, this number may not be correct, that number may not be correct, so when somebody's coming in new and you're hearing well, this is how it's done from 3 or 4 different people, this is where I start. And meaning, you got the policy, but if this is where I start, I'm asking, what do I put in here for numbers? You know, to bound, do you want this information? You don't even really need this information, do you, to rank?
Yes, we do. We
So-
do need that information. It may not be, you know, we understand and we take that under advisement, that the number probably isn't 100% correct.
Right,
But we don't want to lose sight of that number, because next year, we need that number to be right.
right,
And so we don't want to take it out this year.
right, so, okay, let's assume it is right.
Yep.
What do you want me or the department heads to do with these numbers down here in 26 and 27? Do you want us to balance it out? Is there an aim that we're only gonna put so much in capital reserves? I got no direction really
Yeah.
on, I can put any numbers in there and make it work. But
Yeah.
is that what you want? Is that gonna be helpful?
As I know that, and I want to say first that I commend you that you are asking the hard questions, because they're important.
Yeah,
And that it's very important to get this straightened out with the reserve balances.
right,
Because it's a can we can't continue to kick down the road. We need it addressed for this process to work.
right,
With regard to the balance, it's an open question. And I think, and I kind of alluded to this in the last meeting, I think that's probably going to get answered over time. I think the thing to do is to pick a target. And that target will get adjusted over time, because we can't answer, we can't answer all of those questions yet at this point. And, there's also the question of who picks the target.
right,
Somebody's gotta pick it, okay? Somebody's gotta pick it, and it will get adjusted over time as we move forward with the process.
And in a perfect world, yeah, you want this to show what you exactly need for 4 years, 5 years out. So if it's $100,000 a year that you're asking for each budget item there, then the idea is that your goal is to get to that point that you're saving that amount of money every year to go and buy what it is that you're projecting you need in 2026 or 2027. Because then that provides a balanced budget for the town in the end, right? They know what's coming.
yeah,
There's no surprises, right? This is somewhat what, you get to the town floor and you say, hey, I need a truck. It's like, well, nobody knew you needed a truck 4 months ago until you brought it to the budget committee and said you needed a truck.
yeah,
This is to go and project out that you need a truck 4 years from now,
right,
and then to show the town that you're actually attempting to save for that truck 4 years out,
Right.
5 years out. And so, yes, that should be, I'll say, a perfect spreadsheet in the end.
Right.
Whether the town funds it or not, totally different
right, right.
question, right?
It's-
Next year, we'll be like, we're down $200,000 because they didn't sign up for everything in
Yeah.
2020.
You have got those two variables
Yeah.
are really important. So there's what's your target, and then there is what Joe just mentioned, which is it's never gonna get 100% funded in the budget committee.
Right,
And maybe you will.
so,
So you may wanna aim high. You may
Well,
wanna aim for
Yeah,
100%.
say, yeah.
so I got a 10-year and I got a 5-year, I can present in a 10-year, and the good thing about a 10-year, it captures the 5-year, you can't get to 10 without going to 5 first, correct?
In
So,
theory, yes.
so here they are, I can present it like this, and these highlighted here would be the purchase year, and this is what you gotta save to get there every year if you wanna
Yeah.
do it.
No,
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so-
good. It's wonderful.
So in
Total
22,
Here, I like that.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what.
I can
that's
present it like
exactly what
that.
this is.
Yeah.
that makes sense to me.
Because when this committee turns around and says to the select board, we gotta save all
Right.
this money next year,
Mhm.
and then they're gonna pick the top 4 out of the 10 we put in order
Right,
to go and save for, and present that to the town.
Right.
That's the whole idea, but the town's gonna see the rest of the list. So
Yeah.
you're like, oh wow, look at that.
Yeah,
And an actual dump truck coming up in whatever year it is, right?
And if you were to
2028.
put, sorry, if you were to put reserves aside for 23 for what we think we need, you're looking at putting 430, we all know that's not gonna happen, right?
That's right.
So,
Yep.
but this presents it in a more meaningful way, because when I was trying to do this, and this is what I did, but when I want to give you an example of when we start, it's like, what numbers do I put in? I can make 70,000, I could do it 35,000 twice.
Mhm.
Or I could do 65 and 10. I mean, there's
Yeah.
just this whole array of numbers and no,
Don't underestimate the voters though,
No.
because I have seen historically them vote for the correct things that go along. Alright, our infrastructure is one of them. Some of the little stuff, we'll argue for $500 for 2 hours at town
Right.
meeting,
Right.
right? But yet we'll vote in a plow truck in a heartbeat, because guess what? Nobody wants to go off the road around
Right.
here. And everybody wants the fire truck to show up at their house.
right,
So everybody's got, I think, their priorities straight on what needs to happen. I agree with you. Will we vote the whole thing in? Probably not. But the priorities, when you set them up and you look at everybody straight faced, it's pretty clear what needs to happen to keep at the level we're at and improve it.
and, from the town manager seat, I wanna present something that, to you folks, that is meaningful and adds value to the process. And that's why I came up with that, because that spells it right out there for you. There it is. But again, that form isn't necessarily in the CIP policy, so I don't wanna go against the policy, so I'm kinda,
Here's the thing, I mean, here's what this doesn't show, this form, is it doesn't show how much we should be putting into reserve each year.
right,
So that's what it doesn't show, it shows the purchases,
right.
but it doesn't, so you kind of need to show both. They're really two different things.
But is it the select board that's gonna decide what's gonna go in reserves?
No, well, ultimately, the select board, the town decides that at town meeting,
Right,
but the selectmen decide what goes on the warrant.
right,
Right.
so what numbers are you looking for the town manager to put in to help you? If it's really up to the select board that's gonna end up putting, I'm just trying to.
So, what this idea would show is basically every year you fund what you need. That's what this is. This is every year you fund what you need, okay? So, you could, in theory, you could go to the next town meeting with warrant articles for public works that total, oh, no, I see, this is multiple years.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, okay, and these are the reserves, okay, just trying to
no,
understand.
there's no reserves here,
Okay,
there's no
Okay.
reserves here, this is what they have for vehicles, that's what they wanna replace it
So he's
with.
got to
Right.
project it out for.
I've got it projected all, this is the 10-year thing.
Right.
okay,
But that's what you
so,
have to fund to get to,
Right, so
But
that's what you gotta
2023
fund.
2023,
That we reserve.
we have to.
Yeah.
Right,
we
right,
have to fund
so
the
yeah, you would have to
400
put these in reserve to fund them if you wanted to
Yeah.
purchase them.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I thought you meant,
Yeah.
there's no reserve balance on this sheet, let's put it that way.
Right, true,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I
Right,
thought.
you just have the totals per year,
Right.
what you need to do for the projection out into the 10 years.
And if you, this doesn't show, but if you look over here, that's what, these
Yep.
numbers should match. These are the cost of that's the total estimate for these things.
This is great,
yeah, that's great.
exactly what we're looking for.
Good,
But
perfect.
maybe it could be also something supplemental, so that we're still able to show, what the reserve balance is. And, what's going into reserve for a particular year, so we're able to show, what the reserve request needs to be on the warrant for that year, and what the reserve balance is, because it does depend on, the reserve balance. also, the balance is not zero. We need to be carrying a balance in a reserve account. I think that's part of the idea, because, you know, not everything's gonna get funded every year. You might have money that goes, you know, that's allocated, that's not spent, goes back into reserve. I think it is important to show the reserve.
Right, but show the reserve, I get that, but then moving forward with these costs, are you looking to have it, okay, we have $100 in reserve, this thing's gonna cost 50, that gives us 50 left. And then in 26, we need 100, now we're minus 50, do I add 50 to make it zero? That's where I'm trying to kind of get some guidance on what you're actually looking for. Are you looking for a balance sheet? Are you looking to see if we're gonna be in the negative?
Yes, we'll give you a balance sheet. I think that's right.
And just put any number that makes it work?
Yeah, you put the numbers to make it work.
So if I,
Yeah.
it's a good question, I think, is, do we wanna show the balances in the negative, or do you wanna try to keep them at zero or above, in the positive?
0 or above.
So we
Yeah.
did that initially, and then I think the select board didn't.
Well, I don't know, I haven't talked to really what the select board wants, but I just, over time, I can put any numbers I want in there to make it work. And I don't know if that's helpful to you. I
Well,
can
yes.
put a series of numbers, they can be different, I can just divide them evenly.
Okay, this needs to be based on the schedules.
Right,
You know, again, it's gotta be based on the schedules.
and it is.
Okay,
So I guess, just thinking back here. Is the intention, and I know you're trying to work out what's in the current, reserve balance and what it was allocated for to some extent. Are you expecting to put a line item in for every single item on this list? Is that what your intention is going forward?
I'm just trying to, on this
I'm
list,
asking a question specifically only because, so the reserve balance, if we, like each line item there.
Yep.
And I'm not 100% sure how this would work. We wouldn't necessarily ask for 10 line items on the warrant to
No.
fund the truck in 2027, although it's an option that the town should kind of think about. Again, not as a select board member, I'm just, we put in reserve balance for next year, $105,000 for the 3,500 dump truck, let's say, right? So the following year, we're gonna need another $35,000 queued up, ready to go, to add to the other $35,000 for the $70,000 2,500 pickup truck.
Yep.
So do we go every year and go pick the top 5 items there and fund them year after year? That's the idea. But do we keep track of it
Right.
down to that level is part of what I think your question is.
yeah,
And how do you keep track of, you know, we're gonna say, yeah, those 5 items are the right things to go after for the next 5 years. Or 3 years.
and it's based on the schedules.
I think,
Yeah.
no, it's not based on the schedules, because the schedules don't carry the reserve balances, and they should. And if you look at the policy asks that the schedules carry a reserve balance. And so the intent is that this is really, should be in the schedule, rather than the 5-year or the 10-year plan. That's, if you look at the policy, it asks for those reserve amounts to be carried to the schedules.
And the reserve just
we-
is a lump sum.
We have asked for that
Yeah.
for 3 years, and we've never gotten it. So that's what you have done here,
Yeah.
is you
did.
basically put it into the public works schedule.
Right.
Yeah, so what? That's really something that the department heads, that was the intent, that the department heads balance their schedules and their reserve.
So now.
If you look at the policy.
Yeah. And so now the select board has all the information in front of them to say whether they want to go and allocate X amount in the town warrant articles or
Yeah.
not, or just lump them and say, we're gonna save, we're gonna put away 70 plus 6 plus 26 plus 7 plus 35, and take a lump sum and say, we're gonna put that in reserve for next year, and that's the warrant article.
Yeah.
That funds the next 5 things on the list.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's how we get to what the reserve balance needs to be, what needs to go
Exactly,
into
and
reserve.
that carries
Yeah.
forward, and then you go after the next 5 things the following year or the year after to go and start funding those. I mean, the
Yeah.
right thing to do is to fund the $465,000, I think is the number there, right?
Let's
That's
go
what
there.
what's the total?
Yeah.
431. The right thing to do is say, we need $431,000 this year, 735, to put us on a path to fund the next 10 years worth of public works.
Hold it, is it the right thing to do?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's more complex. You look at those numbers, and, you know, one of the things that CIP tries to do is introduce some balance to the tax rate
Mhm.
and tries to even it out. Now, I see here in '23, we're spending $431,000, but in '32, we're spending $33,000.
Yeah, but this, in 10 years, is gonna be over here, and you're gonna be at the same
Yeah,
thing
right,
again.
yeah, you're gonna be, it's a level budget.
Right,
At
right,
the
right,
end,
right, right.
that's
I see
the
what you're
whole-
saying.
the whole
Yeah, yeah,
idea-
yeah.
The whole
Absolutely.
idea is the
But-
level budget.
And
But
then
you
one
wanna
other
try
wrinkle-
to encourage that level.
One other wrinkle I wanna throw into all those things, we're gonna be paying our bonds off. That's gonna infuse more money into it. What do you expect? Do you expect to put that money also into the 5 years?
The bonds, no.
Well, I know, but it is.
Oh,
You mean the
once we
balance,
take out
the
new
balance of
bonds.
what we're
Yeah.
paying,
New
keep the
bonds.
tax rate the same, like, yeah.
So-
Yeah,
All I'm saying is, there's
Yeah.
all,
Right.
there's all
Yeah.
kinds of money.
I mean, that's a good news story.
Right.
though,
Oh,
is for the
absolutely.
town, right, I mean, a town meeting, and when we present this to everybody, at town meeting, is that is a good news story, is because the bonds are coming down. Now, everybody doesn't like their taxes going up, but keeping it the same might be okay, or somewhat less. Right, it's another balance we're gonna have to go and go through for folks to understand. Everybody likes when things come down, but you do need to maintain the balance of equipment that we have. Again,
And-
back to the plow truck showing up on time and the fire truck showing up immediately. It's what's expected,
Right,
and everybody likes that a lot.
and Calvin might not wanna hear this, but this plow truck, you might not really need it in 25.
It could go to the right a little bit.
So everything is moving,
Yeah, everything's
so.
moving. And so it moves in his schedule
Right,
with his reserve balance too.
Yeah.
And, I think this is important to mention, and that is that, we did go through some significant process to develop this, policy. And, it's got I know it has a few idiosyncrasies, like, for example, the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan needs to be a little better fleshed out. And I know there are a few typos, like I caught today, that it says in there, reserve or improvement, rather than reserve or project. It really should say project. I felt bad, because I said the last
feel
meeting,
bad.
I was like, everything's a reserve or a project, but the red policy says improvement. And I know of 1 or 2 other typos, but the bottom line is fundamentally, the important pieces are there.
Right.
And, we have, as you mentioned, it's been challenging. We've had a number of different administrators and managers during a very short period of time. And it's been very challenging for this committee because, we have gotten each year something different. And I think it's really important to go back to the policy and to, for us to look at that policy and consider that. And maybe this is a broader conversation
Yeah.
that needs to happen because, of course, we want to make sure that policy is effective and we're all on the same page, that you like it. And that, the committee likes it, and the selectmen like it and everything.
yeah, just one that
Yeah.
I can understand, if we have a policy and it's been complicated,
Yeah,
then we need to revisit that and,
so I might suggest that you offer this, you know, if you wanna offer this information, that you offer it additionally this year, but you don't offer it in place of the 5-year plan which you put together, which is, I think, a little closer to what the expectation was for the 5-year plan. But again, I don't know if you were, part of this exercise may have been, I know we asked at the last meeting if you could total the expenditures and the reserve requests.
yeah. I'm just trying to get us all players in the room so we all are on the same page, cause being new and hearing different things coming at you, it's
Yeah.
very hard. It's like herding cats. I
Yeah.
just didn't know really what I was really, what's expected, because,
Yeah, well, I think at the last meeting, what we asked is, we're okay with that, but we'd like you to total the reserve requests and the expenditures. So we had a sense of what percentage are we funding? What percentage of the requests are we funding, you know, in that time period, in that 5-year time period?
and does this give it to you?
No, because it doesn't total the reserves.
It could if we knew what
It
they were.
could, so,
Can you switch to the fire department one, the one you
Yeah.
just had, the 5-year, because that does, if you just scroll up, that does total, Jerry.
Yeah, well,
If that number is correct, if the 284 on the right is what the
if
fire.
it was,
Oh,
That's
okay.
I
correct,
believe it is correct.
and you approve in the red a Plymouth vent, then it drops it to 234.
right,
And you can see just like, so this was just a different way of looking at it, if everyone does a refurb of the ladder 125, then it drops it. That's just reserve. That doesn't include, and we were told not to try to figure out how to pay for it, which was different rules, right, Paul? But it used to be, I would suggest how you pay for it, and that's been taken away from the department heads. So I don't have to tell you, I'd like you to use ARPA, or I'd like you to might use my
Right.
capital,
Right.
or let's see if the voters wanna increase their taxes.
yeah.
Just kidding, voters,
And-
I know that answer.
That's not for this committee to decide, but that's in the hands of the selectmen.
Correct, and
Right.
it was taken away from the department heads also. So, I will give you, just as an example, you know, the fire department's 4 things we're looking for.
Right,
Jerry has luckily just removed it, simple math, from what we believe is in capital, but that has nothing to do with how the select board says, no, we'll do ARPA, we'll leave the first 50 in here, we'll do that.
and then all I did, he's looking to get an ambulance, so I just put in 50 grand. Should that be 60, should it be 75?
And that's the next example, so for the fire department, 2029, I
Yeah.
need today's numbers, 400,000.
Yeah.
I need, we're like 7 years out, so 50, 50, 50, 50, 100. So that'll be ready, then in theory, be 400 in reserve for the town to just approve, hey, I see we've already paid for it, we
Right.
vote to use it,
Yes,
get your ambulance.
the money is there.
The money's there,
Yeah.
already on their back.
Exactly.
But that's the next question.
Right.
Do I, as a department head, ask for 50,000 in reserve
Right.
out to 2029?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You do.
Yes.
Okay,
And that's-
but that's just one truck. I mean, the
Yeah.
fire department has 6 and he has.
And,
Right.
but it's an aggregated reserve request. You don't ask for a reserve request for each item you have coming up in the future. It's basically, you look at what you need, which is the way Calvin did it in his. It's one reserve request, okay? You make individual project requests for projects that you're looking to spend the money for, that you're looking to either take from reserve or from taxation to do in that upcoming fiscal year. Like, for example, the Plymouth exhaust removal.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's something you wanna do soon, like you wanna do that probably on year
Yes.
23. So that would be a project, and for that, so that warrant, and to do that, you need a warrant article, you would need a warrant article. And so basically, that, project represents that warrant article and that application that you submitted. Now, if you wanna put money into reserve, the idea is rather than having to ask, you know, for a reserve, make a reserve request for each individual piece of equipment, that you have just a, you know, a reserve, balance. You know, you don't have a reserve that's for the ambulance and a reserve that's for the engine. That you have one reserve. And part of the challenge with this is that the reserves, you know, haven't really been set up or maintained. And so if they were, then this would be clear.
It would.
Okay, so that there's one reserve, or multiple reserves, there's the fire department reserve, there's the public works reserve, there's a facilities reserve, there's a, you know, an assessing reserve, that sort of thing.
So we're getting somewhere. So one reserve. So I have 6 trucks. I thought at one point I'd have 6 reserves.
Yeah.
You know, the ladder truck could be 10 years out, the ambulance is 5 years out, you know, brush truck, that type of stuff. So you'd have reserves, but
Yeah.
what you're saying is it's actually one line item.
It's one, yeah, exactly. And you know what, you
It
guys
does-
go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I guess that's really the question that needs to be brought to the select board is, how do we want to go and section this out? All the homework's done, the chief knows what he needs in 10 years and why he's asking for $200,000 over the course of this year or next year, because he's got all these things stacked up coming at him. Same with Calvin, he knows he has all these trucks coming up as well. And and they've done their homework, they know what that is. And so, yes, if it's one reserve balance, everybody needs to remember that, well, 20,000 goes to this, 30,000 goes to this. I mean, of course, it's kept on a spreadsheet in the town hall, and you keep track of it, Jerry, but and everybody else does, of course, but when you get to town meeting, it becomes a single number. Whether we split that out or not as a town, I think it can be done in both methods. I'm not sure what the best method is, or it's something we probably need to discuss further in
This
another
is,
forum,
yeah,
right?
this is something we've talked about at previous meetings. I remember having the discussion with Ruth about. And one of the challenges is that if you create an individual reserve account for each project, it becomes a very difficult task for the auditors and the financial managers.
And the
Because
allocation of it
what
too.
happens is, so at town meeting, you say, okay, we're gonna put $30,000 in an account for a new town hall, okay? And what happens is, the new town hall never gets built. And what you end up with is, at the time, it seemed like a great idea, but you end up with all of these orphaned reserve accounts that have to somehow be reconciled. And then the voters have to vote to put it back into something else. My experience has been that you get so far down the road with those in terms of bookkeeping that there is no longer institutional knowledge of what the money was for. And so you're better off if you consolidate in one reserve. And with regard to, kind of keeping a record of what's allocated for what, I guess what I'm advocating is that you really don't need to. What you need to do is figure out how much you need in reserve and what it's for, and make that request, and it all goes into one pot. And then when it's time, when you need the vehicle, then you just come. You come to CIP committee and say, I want to spend the money, and we've saved for this, and it's time. And there may naturally be some balancing with regard to, what is, once you get down the road, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years out, what's more important, what do we need most? Do we need the new ambulance most, or do we need the engine most? And so, if you have it, there are some advantages to having that flexibility of having it all in one account versus having it all in a separate account too.
But it sort of, in our conversation last week with Calvin, we wanted to have him tie that reserve to something. And now, I think I just heard was, well, we don't really need to do that.
Yes, you do.
He needs to know the story of what that's tied to. I'm having a hard time. I'll say, I have a hard time with it because, yes, should we be, I agree with Paul, first of all, that we lose track over 5 and 10 years as to what that money was allocated for, even, and the line item in the budget can sometimes be, murky as you get down the road as to why. And maybe you don't need that truck on that year that you allocated for, and then you need something else. You can't reallocate that money because it was for the tandem axle dump truck and not the plow truck. You can't mix and match the accounts
Right.
that
Yeah,
way.
well, you know what this is, what this is
Right,
like. Yeah, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead,
Joe, I'm
go ahead,
gonna
go ahead,
interrupt you
go
for 1
ahead.
second before I lose this train of
Yeah,
thought.
no, I know,
But
I know.
this is exactly like, Jerry, the allocating the money at town meeting for the roads. This is exactly analogous to that.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you said, you don't usually wanna put on the warrant article what roads, you know, you're doing. Because things may change. Because from the time you go to town meeting to the time that you, accept bids and do the work, because you don't have all the real numbers yet, too. You don't have all the real numbers, it hasn't gone out to bid yet. You don't know exactly what you can afford to do. And priorities even change in that 6-month window. So that's why you ask for a sum of money and you say it's for the roads, and these are the roads we'd like to do, but we don't know for sure what we're doing.
It comes back to a really good bookkeeping account of what it is you're gonna allocate the money for on the back end of the process. You're really looking for this sum, but it's the backup data behind that to go and justify it and defend it, when the time comes in front of town meeting. I mean, hopefully ahead of time here, which is what you're doing, but, you know, these questions, some of them will come up again. And to have that on a piece of paper and say, well, here it is, this is the projection, this is what we're looking for, and this sum of money supports the 5-year plan. And this is showing all that data. And it's taken some time to get to that point, you know, and the reserves will work its way out, and then you'll know exactly what the shortfall or the gain might be, hopefully gain. And then you can manage from there as to how, what gets on the warrant and how.
Cause like in Chief's example, where he's looking, he might not get this come 24, 25, so what I said to like Calvin, I said, this isn't a 5-year plan, this is a 5-year schedule with a 1-year plan, cause we're talking about
Yeah.
2020.
That's why you update it
right now.
every year.
Yeah.
That's why you have to update it every year.
Right,
And then you.
so it's not really, so.
You gotta work it.
So
You
there's
gotta work
data, so it's 5 years worth of data, it's not really a 5-year plan,
Yeah.
because if you're gonna plan your work your plan, and we may not be working the plan, and it kind of throws people, it was throwing me off, because when I hear plan, 5-year plan, I think it's set.
Plan.
That's a plan, when DOT puts out a 2-year plan, that's what they're doing.
Right.
So maybe I'm just jaded by, you know, that, but it really is a 5-year schedule with a 1-year plan.
Yep.
Okay, I just
Well,
want.
yeah, you can look at it different ways.
Right.
Planning is an iterative process.
Right.
You know, and it has a very broad definition. I wanna say something about what got brought up with regard to Calvin and Calvin's, reserve request. Calvin's reserve request was fine, but all we were looking for is maybe, you know, 3 sentences saying why you're looking for that. What was that? Is it 100,000
Or which one?
for your reserve request?
Oh, 100,000, yep.
Okay, so, what's your rationale? Why are you asking for $100,000? Because you have this, you know, you've got 3 trucks coming up in the next 5 years.
Yeah, because I
Right.
was trying to keep a positive balance, but even.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep a positive balance. That's all you gotta say. Just, you know, put it into a few words there in the, application, 3 sentences that says, you know, how do you arrive at that $100,000 roughly? What's this money for? That's it. But he doesn't need a separate reserve request for each
Each piece of
vehicle.
equipment, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. All right. Good discussion, I mean, it
Yeah,
helps,
totally.
because
Yeah.
I mean, I've been pretty lost in the forest here. Seriously,
Do you
I'll admit it,
Do you feel like it's clear now?
somewhat.
Okay.
It'll get better
So-
over time.
You know, I really would encourage, especially where we are right now, to think about this. I mean, you know, like you say, lost in the forest, we're trying to find our way. Let's take small steps, okay? And a really important small step to take would be a reserve account for each department, okay? And then if we can do that successfully, at some point down the road, and people want to have a finer grain, think about projects, then great. But that would be a really good place to start, and I think you'll find that it offers the flexibility that's needed to manage these projects without always having to go back and reallocate, and also to, make it easier to keep the books.
And are you, when you say a different account, are you where? In the
A
bank
reserve
account?
account.
With a bank account with money in it?
No,
On a spreadsheet?
no, it's in the accounting system, in our chart of accounts.
Okay,
So we have a chart of account
Gotcha.
that is a reserve account, and it shows it on the books, but it's in, but it's not a separate bank
yeah,
account.
we can do that, yeah, absolutely.
One question, in the policy, the figure 2 has a 5-year schedule that is similar to that, but slightly different. Do you know what I'm talking about? And the reason, so in the policy, and I'll call it out, has some different column headers that, at least for me, would make things
Which ones?
yeah, no, so it essentially has a line where there's a request, which would, I'm assuming, be the requested amount, and then the new cost of whatever the equipment's going to be, and then it has a reserve before and reserve after, which maintains the balance of the account. And where I guess think that that's helpful, one of the things that confuses me with this is, so if we look at, so assuming that the starting reserve balance is correct, and then the request for $105,000 comes out of the reserve balance, which to me is saying, well, you're spending the reserve, as opposed to my assumption as part of this committee process is that if the select board of the town funds the $105,000, you're not actually spending the reserve, you're getting new funding, so you wouldn't actually pull it out of the reserve balance. So that's why, what's in the policy has a place to say, this is the requested or the newly funded amount, and so that way it maintains your reserve balance. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah,
But,
what is the 105 coming out of reserve, or are we raising it?
well, so the way that this looks to me is that you're paying it out of reserve, because your reserve
Right.
balance goes from 216 down to 111, so it's saying, okay, we're spending it out of reserve.
Right,
Whereas I think that this process is to get new money, so you don't have to
Yeah.
use the reserve.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, and so the schedule, the way that this is set up in the policy would help to track that a little bit better.
Yeah, the other thing I'll just mention there is, I think that if you're using taxation, then it comes off, and, you know, that happens, at town meeting for that specific project year, and it comes off. You know, you don't even see that. You're never planning to use money. In the plan, you're not planning to use you're planning to save. So, and you are, in a way, you're planning to use taxation money for the last year, for if you're saving for 5 years, for year 5, because you probably won't have saved it all in those 4 years. But what I'm saying is that washes out because that piece of equipment comes off the schedule once it's purchased. If that's helpful. Anyway, yeah, I guess, I think that you're really close with the 5-year plan that you've got. You may want to think about that for considering where we are this year, or that we got a late start this year because of all these different, factors, and the fact that, you were very kindly willing to jump right into this, Jared. And I kind of think that it's some comments we need to just kind of put into our mental cache and remember for next year, so that we can add them in hopefully next year and move forward to pretty much get this year done.
yeah, maybe start even a little earlier than what you've had in even previous years.
Maybe we have a meeting beforehand,
Yeah,
yeah,
or something, just so we're,
make sure we're all on the same page.
so,
Yep,
one more thing just before I want to just clarify, so you're saying that we shouldn't be spending, the reserve should stay there and we should be just taking it from taxes? Or, well, I guess I'm not clear on what,
Yeah, I didn't understand that either.
yeah, I don't know.
So I guess, this will be a question, this is me being new, but so we'll take, the line 5 there, if you can scroll over just to see the full,
So-
yes, scroll to the side. So line 5 is a 1.5 ton single axle dump truck, right? So
Yeah.
$105,000. So there's a request here for $105,000 for that. So if it is approved by the town,
You don't
then,
get out of
then
reserves.
Oh,
Public Works is gonna
oh,
get
I see.
105 grand coming in, so
Right.
you don't have to pull it out of the 216 reserve.
Exactly.
So you don't go down to the 111,000.
Oh, I see.
You get, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So,
But filling this out,
Potentially
how would I know
evaluate.
that ahead of time?
well, you don't,
That,
Well,
okay,
it's-
that's where the confusion comes in.
but it doesn't
well, so
really
that's
matter.
where, so in the policy on figure 2.
So just put a number in there, be good.
You just put a you just put the number in.
It's
what do you think's gonna
yeah,
take?
it's a wrong number based on, or an exact number, depending on if you've got an exact number for it, on what you think your plan needs to be successful in buying all this equipment outright.
For 2023, or all the way right down to,
All the way
all the way
across.
right down?
Right, so that you don't, so you're essentially asking, you're trying to level the budget across the board on all those years as much as possible. If you're asking for $200,000 a year for that overall budget, and it's the same number across the board, you're trying to get that so that you keep yourself level loaded to be able to buy all this equipment.
Jerry, do you have the policy on your, open up on your computer?
I
The
don't.
CIP? Okay.
I don't. No, I would if we were over there, but.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Well, is the website, do you have that? I can open it right up on the town.
Yep, if you minimize, I think you can go to the next Chrome over here and probably pull it up.
You know, and it's not just to
Yeah,
save,
right.
to put money away either,
Type it,
right?
maybe.
Yeah, it's not just to,
You want me to type,
Go ahead.
you want the
If
town
you
Durham?
Yeah,
DurhamME.com. Oh,
You got a copy of the policy.
need a keyboard.
yeah, but he wants to bring it.
Well, I
up.
just, I thought it might be easier to see it. I don't wanna derail. I think my point is being lost, or it's not a good point, one of the two.
yeah, it's not to go,
Well, I think it's a good point.
it's not,
That didn't work.
it is, it's not to go cash a bunch of money into reserves either, but it's to get a level loaded budget that makes sense to go and
So
sustain.
I'm curious if you can easily find this, cause,
Oh, I can
Yeah.
find it, I looked at it several
Oh,
times.
okay.
There we go.
I should have emailed you last night, it would have taken me a lot less time. So, yeah, scroll down to.
5-year plan.
Okay, right there, oh, what was it, sorry?
Those are the schedules. I keep going. Hold on, no, keep going. Keep going. Stop,
There you go.
that's it.
So so what I was looking at was figure 2, which was above, so I guess what is the purpose of this versus the purpose of the schedules?
So, the schedules, and this is something that, it's gone through some iteration, and, which is why I feel pretty good about generally where you've landed, Jerry. Because what the 5-year plan really needs to do to be effective is to, wrap together the schedules for the next 5 years. Or if you wanna go 10 years, 10 years. But to integrate those schedules into a plan, so that we're able to get the big picture, okay? So that we're able to get the big picture of, what does the next 5 years look like for capital expenditures across the board? I think, that's what it's trying to get at. This template here, I don't find it that effective personally. You know, it's something that we struggled with as a committee. And so I don't have any, I don't really have any issue with trying to figure out a better way to do it personally. But I think that that is, it's something, like I said, the committee struggled with it.
Yeah,
And so it's something we're probably not gonna solve tonight.
right,
Just-
right.
Yeah, if you
right.
scroll up to figure two, just, again, we can move on, but where I was coming from, and with that one, if you go up,
that's a
they're both the
facility,
same,
sorry.
they're facility either way. So this is what we're saying is, so this has the request, so that's the requested amount, for the CIP. And then it has new cost, which is saying, so whatever the asset is, that's gonna be the cost. The difference would come out of reserve, but then to the right, you have your reserve before and reserve after. So this
Yeah.
accounts for both any money being used out of the reserve as well as, in theory, the request column is money that will be funded. We don't know that yet, but that is the idea, if it is funded, and that will maintain your reserve balance.
Right.
Would be, I
Exactly.
guess, a way of
Yeah.
setting up.
Yeah, and so I think, you know, the important thing is that the 5-year plan needs to be derived from the schedules. And I think that's what, again, what's missing is the reserve balance information in the schedules.
I thought, Calvin's, I think, is derived from the schedules.
Does he have his reserve balance going out in the schedule? I can't recall. Do you, Calvin?
We have the schedule, you have it up there, right?
There's a schedule right here. And this, all of this data right here is represented in this. It's the
Sorry,
same.
can you go back, sorry, can you go back to
Sorry.
balance?
Which well is
I
that?
think the replacement schedule is that.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay, so hold on just a minute, can we look, just give us a moment?
So that's
Okay.
essentially that figure two with the exception of the reserve. and-
Okay,
Right.
so please, could you scroll up so we can read the column headings? Thanks. Okay, so you see, you don't have, you have the reserve, no, you don't have the reserve balances in there. You have the costs of the equipment, but you don't have the reserve balances.
So it's two separate sheets, you know, they, one.
Well,
Or
in
the
the
same.
policy, it's all wrapped into one sheet. And, you know, not that that's the only way to do it, but what's really important with this stuff is that we all do it the same way. So
Right,
we figure out how we're doing it, and we all do it the same way.
Right.
And we have this policy, and it sets out, you know, a way to do it. And I think it'd be really helpful if we, you know, if we stuck with that I will say there are some notable exceptions. One is the 5-year plan, because I don't think that the 5-year plan policy is tremendously effective. So, and I think that's kind of evolved over the last 3 years. And so, anyway,
The 5-year plan, we've gotta get to, right, because it's really it's a town plan, it's not necessarily a by department plan, because all the applications rolled into a list here for the 5-year plan, the way I'm reading this, but I could be interpreting it.
it's, see,
differently.
and for me,
So, but I think that number, you know, the 2-year schedule definitely feeds into that 5-year plan. And then this could become a 5-year plan with, at least, you could do a 5-year plan on each department separately and then merge them into something that you present at the next level up.
I think,
I could see that happening pretty easily,
yeah,
but it
what I see,
keep with the policy.
I can smell a workshop coming up after we get through this process. So we
Well-
can all hammer this out.
I would say before you go there with a workshop, have you and the committee should meet,
Okay, that's
okay?
fine.
Because the
Well,
last thing we
workshop
wanna
with
do,
us,
yeah, with us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But we want to, before if we want to suggest changes to the policy,
And I want the
we want
department
to,
heads.
want to
to-
come to the selectmen with something concrete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Yeah, if this necessarily doesn't work, I'm not sure this won't work.
but we need to look at it together so we're all on the same page and we
Yeah.
all understand, have a
Yeah.
better understanding.
And then once we do that, we
Awesome.
amend the policy if we need to.
Thank you.
So should we do
Let's
that,
move on.
should we do that after this.
Yeah, let's get through
Yeah,
this
it's not
process
just
first.
something,
Yeah.
yeah,
Through
we're gonna,
this year,
we need
get
to
through
just
this
stick
year.
with what we
Yeah.
have and,
Okay.
Yeah.
and move.
Perfect,
Exactly.
thank you.
And-
All right,
Yeah, with, the only caveat to that is, you know, of course, I know you're gonna be working in the background on this reserve balances.
oh, absolutely,
Which
yeah.
are really important.
Yeah, working, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Next sounds like stuff.
Any other questions about CIP process? All right, so if there are no other questions, then we'll move on to our next section, which is the opportunity for the department heads to talk, you know, about their applications if they like, and I know at the last meeting, we did go over the applications as they were presented to us. You know, in the paper format, we talked about them briefly. So, and that's how we came up with the questions, but I would suggest maybe we take Calvin first, and I only say that because his is fairly short, I think. And I don't think it'll take us that much time to cover it, and then we can get him out of here. And then maybe we move on to Chief Tripp, if that's okay with Chief.
Absolutely.
So if you take the packet I gave you with the paperclip on it, there should be 3 separate staples. So it starts out with the request for information that you guys had given me, and all I did was answer it in blue, so. And then in the attachment, because the next one is just my applications revised, but you skip past that and go to the very last one with a map on the front. That's going to be the supporting documentation for the stream crossing specifically. And so it's a site map. You know, one of the questions there was that you wanted clarification on what or who determined that this stream was blocked for fish passage. And so the DEP website, if you look up that site, there's a site number. The second one's a photograph showing that the pipes are, half a foot to a foot above the water level, so fish can't get up in the pipe and continue upstream. It's called perched or hung pipes. And the next page, you'll see, this is the information right off the DEP website, and you look at the third line down and highlighted, it says, crossing class barrier, which is blocked. They're choosing to use the word barrier, but it's blocked. So those are identified on the map as red. If you pull up the town of Durham and look on the map viewer for this, on the DEP website, you'll see this has got a red symbol on it, which means it's one of the blocked. So, which means that, it really, things should have been done differently. The last page, if you look at the last page of that, and you turn that sideways, look at your bottom left, and you'll see that diagram shows the 2 round circles in the middle. Those represent the existing culverts and the water flow that is able to go through there. And if you look at the broader picture, that's sitting within the new proposed crossing, which is all that area which water could go through. So you're seeing the difference of, you're gonna have water fitting through that entire, between those dark blocks, 17 and a half feet wide versus these 2 little 3-foot pipes. The very last page, you should have a map. In the bottom left. Hopefully you all got one. If you're not. Oh, yours, Jake, sorry about that. I have look at that. The rest of you have that map, this last diagram of the.
This one, oh, it's on front, okay.
The last page. You should have
What's this
this.
supposed to look like?
Maybe I didn't stay here one time. The very last page.
Down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got that.
Okay, just see those two round circles?
Yeah.
And so that's what's going through there now for water flow versus what's going to be there is everything within those black blocks of dark blocks.
Yeah.
So you see the volume is dramatically different, so. So what's happening is, so basically this is gonna become a bridge.
Yeah.
Those are the two abutments. You'll see the concrete deck is 20 feet long on top. And then there is 18 to 20 inches of gravel going over the top of that and then paved. So it'll feel just like a road. You won't know you're on a bridge, but you're essentially on a bridge.
Yeah, bridge, right.
Can you remind me, what is that DOT threshold for a town bridge versus a DOT bridge?
It's 20 feet.
20 feet.
So you'll see the open span, which they go by here, is 17.8. So it kept it under the threshold. So
Conveniently.
the deck is 20
Okay.
feet. The stream impact is less than 20 feet, so.
Yeah,
But it's dramatically increased in size due to updated permitting requirements.
How many times a year do you close that road?
Sometimes 2 or 3, sometimes once. So
The photo that, the existing culverts and fill, it doesn't look like it's been there that long. Do you have any idea how long ago?
Well, I've been here 8 years and.
I know the answer to
I
that
know.
You do?
question because I used to live next to it.
Yeah, I gotta say.
And let me tell you, on Swamp Road, right next door to it, and let me tell you, that is a real hydraulic event when that road floods. And it creates these vortexes of water, like, going down through the culvert. It's kind of scary. But anyway, Cliff Larrabee extended those culverts back in somewhere around 2008. Because the road was flooding so dramatically, and he learned that by extending the culverts, he could, I don't know, from terms of the physics of it, exactly how it works, but he thought that would help. So those pipes that you're seeing are actually extensions, and they cut that bank back, they extended them, and then they put new riprap around it.
Gotcha.
And so they did kind of a major rebuild back around 2009, but prior to that, they were put in, I think, maybe 2004, 2003, somewhere in that area. But then there was a major blowout that caused them to extend them. So yeah, it was like 2003 roughly, somewhere around early 2000s.
So in answering questions back to the front page, the Army Corps of Engineers has done some, we're moving to the second, so that answers the first question. The second answer, I guess I should have numbered these, is added cost of the design is due to Maine Inland Fish and Wildlife recently classifying the stream as Atlantic salmon habitat. Army Corps of Engineers really stepped in and made a lot of changes, a lot of permitting requirements, changed the entire scope of the project. This is a much bigger project than what we had anticipated initially. And so, and there again, the Maine DEP maintains a database of fish passage structures, and this one is defined as blocked, which is seen on that, on the supporting documents I gave you, that shows it as a barrier.
Yep. Calvin, I have no further questions, and I'll turn it over to the other committee members, other than to say you've done a great job in terms of the documentation here and answering all the questions. And I would encourage you to keep this stuff collated together so that when you get to the budget committee and these questions come up again, you've got the information right there and you can provide it to them if they ask. Because like you say, this is very clear, this printout from the DEP website that says it's a barrier, that there is a barrier there. And the other information that you have here is very helpful. I think, from my perspective, I think you answered all the questions, but I'm gonna turn it over to these guys, they may have more.
Yeah, I'm good, but thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure we had all the answers to all the potential questions that could come up, although this was actually needed only because of increase in budget needed to go and fund this and how necessary it was. Cause I think we walked into this with a, you know, hey, they're gonna give us some money and we'll match it 50-50 and everything will be good and this is a good thing for the town, but I didn't know how much upfront work was actually in hand to justify it for the habitat and the need for the town, so thank you.
I just have one comment, because I was here, but did the town vote last year to actually fix this bridge, but we ran out of money?
Well,
The costing.
The cost.
the cost went up so that the money that was allocated, and the time that we needed to go get it done, both of them exceeded the limits, so.
And are you pretty confident in your costs this year?
It's engineer's estimate when it goes to bid, I mean, I hope
Yeah.
maybe it comes in at 250, I hope so.
Yeah. So one other, just real quick comment, and that is, I know those box culverts, sometimes that's a pretty significant lead time.
Not this one, because we've gotten rid of all the metal, and now it's all precast concrete that's made right here locally.
Oh, wow.
So
Cool.
the metal ones had 8, 9, 12 months lead
Yeah.
time, that was really, that's what was originally proposed.
Yeah, yeah.
So this actually helps.
Oh, good. Nice. All right, great. All right. What do you got next for us, Gowan?
So that's.
Do we have any other questions for you?
Well, you had the fish passage, and then you had, the next one on page 2 was the $100,000 capital request, so you wanted them tied to a specific truck, which I misunderstood, so now that after having the meeting tonight, I understand you don't want that, so I'll switch it back.
And we just want, we just want an explanation. That's it. So, why are you asking for $100,000?
Okay, yep, I can fix that. Next, truck project, titled Reflect the Truck Number, 1.5 ton truck. I made that change on the request for that one. I put it in the title block where it says project title. I'm on the last page. And then the question about the truck being retained, the current truck, the 2008. The 2008 truck, so we are in desperate need of an additional vehicle. We have 2 1-tons, the crew is split. And so when the crew is split, and there are 2 vehicles, if either one of them are in for repair, they're down to 1 vehicle. And if they run short of materials or need something that they have to go get, then there's no truck on the site. And when you're talking public works, most of our projects we're moving. It's not something where we go and stay in one spot all day. We're moving down the roadway throughout the day, ditching. So if a truck is not there, has to go get a part or go get something or go do something, then that project pretty much comes to a standstill until a truck gets back. They can't move. So initially, when the department was started, they had just 1 crew, and I think that was the plan, was that the crew was all going to work together. That's not nearly as productive as having 2 crews doing
Yeah.
2 separate things. And so I just think it was, and also, when we started, we had 7 wheelers, 7 tandem axle trucks. And per the request of the select board, I eliminated one of them and brought it down to 6. So we took that off the plan, off the inventory list. And so that's quite a savings, but this pickup, or this additional 1 ton, I should say, should have been added right from the beginning, and it just wasn't. So I think it's a correction that needs to be made.
If I may ask, did the selectmen have any particular disposition with regard to keeping this old truck?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I think the only question that I think we had was that there were a couple trucks that were being discussed in regards to the chief's truck, Calvin's truck being replaced at some point in the near future. And then this third truck came up as a need, and I know Calvin's asked for this before, but, you know, was there a way to save a truck for the next person in line and allocate it? What's the best approach from the truck swap, I'll call it, for lack of a better word?
And this
to
one
be
isn't
able to
very,
manage
Right.
the cost,
yeah,
right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're not gonna be able to buy 3 trucks, right? It's just that simple. It just won't pass the straight face test. So, but how can we reuse something or repurpose something that makes sense? And I believe the chief has offered, and Calvin's offered, some sort of swap that does make more sense than buying new trucks in some regards, in some instances. And I think that was really what the whole, I think the gist of the selectmen was like, all right, well, just what's the overall plan to do this?
yeah.
We understand the need, I think the need's valid, but it's, you know, how do we do this in a way that makes really good fiscal sense?
This is your one time.
One time.
But you welded plates of steel on the,
Fire department doesn't want that truck.
Yeah, this is not your truck.
Right.
no,
Yeah, no, I get it, I get that, but just when we talk pickup truck, we talk pickup trucks, right? And they are all not alike, I agree. And so I get it, the parts and the runner truck.
You know, I have some confidence in, you know, Jerry is just getting his arms around this. And he's been, you know, working on the CIP and all, and that's just a small part of what he's doing. But it's the perfect role for the manager, and I have some confidence that he's gonna help us figure that out as we move forward, these pickup trucks. And I think it's one of the reasons we hired a manager, is because, you know, sometimes these, you know, problems need to be solved that involves coordination of different departments. And so it's a great kind of thing, for us to, you know, for us to have the manager involved with. So, we may not, I don't, you know, I remember these same conversations from when I was a manager, and they were sometimes really challenging. They took a lot of time, they took time to figure out. And so I'm not saying that we're looking for an answer tonight, because we know there's not one.
I just want everybody
Yeah.
to think
But-
about the whole picture.
But yeah, think about it, and hopefully you guys can coordinate, a proposal that you think also makes sense. We are where we are today, but moving forward, hopefully you guys can coordinate a proposal. My last question though for Calvin is, on this project, is what happens to this truck that you're keeping in a couple of years when it's no longer, you know, serviceable, when it won't pass inspection anymore? And it doesn't make sense to fix it. How far away is that?
It's hard to say, but, I mean, it would be getting used less, if we have the other new one to replace it. That one's gonna be more of a spare backup truck, and something for the mechanic to run and get parts with, or bring equipment to this site, or load buckets on, or whatever's gonna be welded or fixed, load it on the
Yeah.
truck, take it back to the shop, but it wouldn't be getting the use it's getting now.
So might this truck be an ongoing kind of like retired truck
Yeah.
versus a truck that we see next year as new on your replacement schedule?
Right, I would just run it to exhaust, run it to.
This is the kind of the spare, if you will.
If I can get 10 years out of it, I get 10 years out of it. If I can get,
And then the next one is like a retired spare too,
yes.
that replaces that one
Yeah.
versus it going on a replacement schedule in a couple of years as a new truck.
That's the plan, this is
I see.
not gonna go on the schedule. We
Yeah,
just
that-
need to add a third truck in there, we already have it, we know what it is, so I'd rather keep that, use it less, and take care of it.
That's really helpful to understand, thank you.
So, I know there's been mention of using personal vehicles and paying mileage, but the difference here is we're putting people's personal vehicles, hooking onto trailers and putting buckets and
Yeah,
materials
that
and
doesn't
trucks
work.
and
Now,
putting them in
That doesn't
hazard
work.
without proper lighting.
Yeah,
that's not the same as, you know, I can see a code officer or an assessor, or,
No, I'm thinking more like going to get parts or
yeah,
that kind
Right,
of thing.
or like you say, you know.
But you wanna use it for more than that.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We're putting them in harm's way, we got moving equipment, and they're going inside the work zone and inside the barrier, and that's where I really don't want people's personal vehicles.
Okay, yeah, thanks for clarifying that, that's really helpful.
Okay?
Any other questions for Calvin?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you, Calvin. Okay. Rob, are you ready for us?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Okay. So, where would you like to start? What application would you like to start with?
I'll just go in order. I think the first one in that paperwork that was submitted to me for questions by you all.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
So the first one is the administrative request for the town hall generator project.
Okay. I'm just gonna open that real quick. Sure. Sorry. I gotta log back in. All right. So town hall generator, right? Okay.
And I understand, we can segue if that's appropriate eventually into the fire department generator, because there's a lot of the same
Yeah.
questions that you came up with. So what happened, the history was, town manager Jerry noticed a couple storms ago, his generator did not fire off. We lost power, the generator at the town hall didn't start, we had a failure. So we started looking into the years of them, and then both of them really, and then with your questions. So what I did was, I was tasked with it, to go out to Electrical Systems of Maine. They're out of Auburn, they're actually the ones who put in the Public Works generator. So the town has history with them, so I started there. I did only get the one quote, and that was just to get the ball rolling, that wasn't about a final bid process,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which it would go out to bid,
Yeah.
for both of them, but I had them sort of as a bundle also. If you do one, you try to do the other.
Yeah.
So as far as the town hall, I don't know if you have it in front of you, I have more information straight from them. The town hall has a 48 kilowatt generator. That was on a grant, that's an '05 manufactured. And it now has trouble starting. The local rep that fixes it and maintains it, who lives here in Durham, has ordered a relay for it, so there's electrical issues, and I'm told some mice got in there, have chewed the wires, so it's starting to be unreliable. If you Google it, and thank you for your due diligence in coming tonight, because it makes us better, it makes us answer these questions, and eventually to the public that'll ask the same questions.
Sure.
These aren't home generators, these are not, they're automatic. Every week they do a self-test, they run. These two generators are propane fed from the tanks that are on site. And they do have a service, not a contract, but every year the same gentleman, it's Midcoast Towing, comes out because he's a repair person, changes the oil, checks the belts, does the relay, all that. So they are at least electronic with engine hours. I know you asked about that. So the town hall engine hours is 398 at the 45 kW. If you look up online, they don't say anybody, oh, at 1,000 hours replace or 500. What the research I've done is when it starts to failing, failure to start, throwing money into it, electrical issues, that's the time you consider changing it out. The quote was actually to downsize it to a 20. And how they got that is, it's actually by occupancy. So that's actually a business, right? It's got copiers, phones, computers, regular household items, the small kitchenette, refrigerator, but they decide just on, it's not a 24-hour process, there's no heavy garage doors, there's not air compressors that take a lot of energy, so they use it as an occupancy of business. So they want to, or they suggest a 20 kilowatt replacement. so that's even more than half. They've come in at I'm sorry, that 38, so they are downsizing, and on that one, they came in currently at 22,800. And I don't know if this is in front of you, but they lay out everything that they would do. Removal, install new, rework electrical, rework the propane, free 7-year extended warranty, all that's on here. And if it's not in front of you, I apologize, I can get you that. Again, this was at the tail end of the CIP.
Sure.
So I'll make sure you all get that. Fire department, same concept. We are maxed out because of electrical, so we have 2 quotes for the fire station. We currently have a 20, and they want to increase it, so it's the opposite. So we have a smaller one that we got on a grant in '01, and if you look, we're at the 20-year mark for the generator. Again, propane fed. The hours are increased on that one. It hasn't failed, but we keep a log due to safety. And we've had some overheat issues, we've had some other electrical issues, because it's, of course, outside. They have given us a choice. We can install a 22, which is more, or a 48, which is double the capacity. The one is almost 16,000, and then the 48 goes up to 32, almost doubles. The reason for the higher is, again, we're maxed out. This is a high capacity electrical. So we have 200 amp coming in, multiple 100 amp services. If you were to add, and we're maxed out. So if you, with garage doors, air compressors, if you were to add a exhaust removal system, that's high power electricity, that would tax our current generator. It would put us over the kilowatt that we need. So that they gave us the 2 quotes, one being the higher generator for that. That's also consideration 10, 15 years down the road of, do you have overnights? Do you have additions? Do you have an extra bay, more lighting, that type of stuff? So again, I'll get you those, but it dovetails with the same grant process, same age, rough same hours, and same reliability.
Do you think it's useful to do annual preventive maintenance, to have some company come once a year?
Currently, we do that.
You do?
Currently, in my budget, I do have that. So we do have annual maintenance as far as oil change, that will.
Right, exactly. So, and this is, something that for me is kind of a little bit of a black box, because I know, you guys here at the fire department, it's kind of like there's this like kind of special ownership of, you've got like, the officers and duties, people have duties, to do certain things with regard to maintaining equipment and all this, so it's not as apparent, but when you get to other places, there's often kind of a clerk of the works, which might be like a public works director. Now I know that, our Calvin has the title of road commissioner, and I don't know like where these other duties quite fall, whether, for example, the generator is at town hall is the responsibility of the town manager or the administrative assistant, or whether it's Calvin's responsibility. I don't really know, but I wonder, for example, if the preventive maintenance was done over there at town hall in the past.
Going back 5 to 7 years, same company, Midcoast Towing, which is also heavy mechanic,
Yeah,
has been doing both.
they were doing both.
Preventative maintenance.
And
Prior to that, I found paperwork, I can only assume that the same companies that we were using prior to them would go across the street.
so you think we've been doing preventive maintenance across the street too?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
I know that was one of the questions.
And that carries in the budget, like somewhere?
It does, it's a line item for the fire department.
Okay.
I think Jerry under administration has it.
Okay, yeah, okay, awesome, thanks.
Reoccurring expense, hasn't gone up.
Yeah.
That's the history. I don't know if there's other questions for the generators, but currently the one that's failed is the town hall. And again, the fire station's maxed out where we are right now.
Great, thank you.
Include quotes, at the time, per the protocol and policy, multiple quotes would be taken to replace it, if that's how far we get.
Joe is kind of our, he's our electrical guy. Because he is,
Something electrical.
yeah,
he is.
right? Because he's electrical engineer, I believe. So what do you think, Joe? I mean, do you have any questions?
No, that was a great rundown. I do have a couple questions. So are we getting any, with the newer technology, is there different like apps that tell you how the generator's running, or they'll say Jerry, or how does the feedback from the generator come back to the town management for keeping track of themselves? How
Is it
you know,
starting?
Is it starting every week? Is it, does that go to a server? Who watches over that? How do we know it's not working?
So,
The lights
Or
don't
working?
your last question,
Lights
maybe.
go out.
Let's hear you talk.
Lights go out and it
Lights
doesn't
are
come
too
on.
late.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's usually how it works.
Well, with the new one, they do offer that. They offer the warranty, the support, 24-hour support.
So they must get reporting back or
Yes.
something, so does it tie into the network? I mean, is there
That I
is there
don't
any
know.
network burden?
The nuts and
for-
bolts of that, or network burden, I can't
You
answer.
don't know,
Tonight.
I mean, I'm assuming there is.
Yes.
It is part of it, just knowing what I know today. but,
Yeah, and you're right, certainly.
So part of the idea, you're supposed to know when it's testing and actually check
So
occasionally,
you
make
can-
sure it's testing.
Correct,
when
and
it's
you
supposed
can
to.
actually choose when that happens.
Yep, you can
So-
set it, so you make sure someone's around, don't do
Yeah,
it.
and so for the fire
Middle of the
department,
night when no one's here.
correct, it is easier
Yeah.
for us, with a log, with a paper trail. And that goes back to our insurance carrier, all of it, maintenance.
It's actually not a bad idea, because we pretty much know when storm's coming, so we could check to see if it's gonna
Yeah.
work prior to.
Oh, yeah, you just, like,
Yeah.
no different than my
Which is
truck calling me and telling me that it's running, it's about to run good when I start it up.
My truck doesn't do that.
There's an app.
I'm impressed.
Giving me the diagnostics of it. Okay, no, I'm fine with this. I always like more power, so the 48K looks, like something that would put us more into the future if we were ever to do, some of these upgrades that we've talked about in the past. Would be probably the smart route to go. From a fiscal standpoint, of course, staying right after the kilowatt need, might prevail. But I would hope that we would think about going to a higher output generator for the fire station. And yeah, 48K seems a little over the top for the town hall. I'm sure it was because the grant came in and says, hey, we're gonna give you a 48K
Yeah.
generator, would you like it?
Correct.
Sure, right, we
Correct.
took it
Correct.
20 years ago,
Full-
and that's what came, is,
Yeah.
a bunch of 48s
Yeah.
were in stock, and they said, here, have a 48K generator.
Full disclosure on the fire department, they do, just the one company, they do have the disclosure of, electrical would be on the side. I mean, they would hook it up as is,
Yeah,
but if electrical upgrades to this building, which I suspect needs to be done, then that is not their cost.
right, and you've talked about that previously, about some of the electrical, upgrades that might
Sure,
be needed here.
Sure, for others, this building from stem to stern is a 40-year project. So they started with a 2-bay, went to 4-bay, and the last, it was exactly 20 years ago, July 11th was 20 years ago, they added the last, so it was 6 in this training room. So that's why we ended up with the heating and cooling this year. Again, thank you, because it was never in the building. And now that we occupy it more, not at night, but as you can see, the voice went out right now.
Yeah.
But constantly, so it's heating and cooling and AC, but the electrical is woefully under. It's a 200 drop of multiple 100 amps. As they built, they just continued to sort of add a service. Yeah, they did add
So how
hundreds.
does the current generator, does the current generator handle all the
It does.
different drops?
It does. It does. But in order to tie it in or increase it, they're suspecting NFPA 70 with the state building electrical code, that they would have to tie it
So I'm
on.
wondering, are they gonna have to redo all of the service panels then into one main one and essentially rewire the whole building?
I don't know that. We're hoping not to.
And is that, but those costs aren't included? in
Correct,
the
they're not
application.
included.
So I guess my question would be, how would those costs be allocated? I mean, are we to a point to approve the funding for this project if we don't know the total cost?
So we were just talking generator, and,
Right.
and it's almost impossible, on an overage for an electrical
Can
cost.
we, stupid question, but can we use the new generator with the electrical system as it is until we
Currently, they can,
upgrades?
they can plug and play.
Okay, good.
So you
Yeah.
could put the new generator in, it wouldn't force from a.
It wouldn't, from
it
a
wouldn't-
code
it wouldn't
inspection.
force a code upgrade
Correct,
to the
yes.
system, right, that's.
So we can do it stepwise.
Yes.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Not that that wouldn't be a good idea, but that's a separate issue.
And you had mentioned that the two were bundled, the town hall and this one, do we know, I mean, are the current quotes, is there any discount to do two, or is it, the two standalone?
I don't wanna speak for them. They did the two quotes separate just in case one passed, one didn't pass. You only had half the money, you didn't wanna bundle it, that type of thing. I think that was protection of them. Also, let's not be remiss, not that these prices are good for 30 days, but totally different come April, after town meeting, when they vote on it, these numbers could be
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Very
Could go either way.
difficult, whether you're talking about an ambulance or a generator, or even computers, as we found, to get a price and to go through this long process, and then to really flush it out at the end, to have the final price.
We asked that question about whether, at least I asked it about whether the project's going out to bid. It's kind of like a rhetorical question, because my understanding of the finance policy is that projects like this are supposed to go out to bid. But I kind of put it in there sometimes as a reminder, because, I know that, the selectmen, it's great when we're all thinking along the same lines, that things like this are going out to bid, and you said it, that, it sounds that this isn't a bid, but I'm assuming at some point, this will go out to bid, competitive bid.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was reassured, the town manager reassured that
Yeah,
this was a quote,
Right,
and if funded and approved,
yeah.
then we
yeah,
follow
yeah,
the
yeah.
town policy.
Exactly, yeah, so I'll probably just start taking that comment out of there.
Yeah. I don't think in my career on something that costs,
Yeah.
you don't go out to bid, that's just.
Yeah,
that's just-
exactly, especially something like this.
But,
Yeah,
Chief talks about April, it wouldn't even be April, because we wouldn't be buying anything until we have a tax commitment to make sure we can pay for it.
well,
So we're looking at August, September before we would even.
I think this is, Jerry, I think this is one of the wonderful things about having a public works director as a town manager, is that I'm sure you've got lots of experience with bid spec.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's great.
Not to mention in the paving world,
Yep, exactly, right,
Yeah.
that's great. All right, so what do we got next?
If we're going in order, let's see, it might be the fire department request for a quint rehab, which, one of your questions, that is a project, so that would be a 2023 project. For the folks at home, I have that as $125,000 for a rehab.
Yeah.
And after I get through mine in the Plymouth event, I'd love to go for a field trip out into the apparatus bay, because I think visual will help everybody.
Uh-huh, great, okay.
So I am with your questions, that is a project, we are trying to get it done for 2023. The Quint was certified as far as the hydraulics and the testing. So every year we have all our pumps tested, and the Quint has a pump. That's roughly $400, so that was tested. We have 2 pumpers in the Quint, which is also a pumper, all tested. And then the hydraulics with the ladder has to come out per NFPA. They do all the ground ladders, a weight test, and they do the aerial ladder. All that passed. I've had 3 independent companies and contractors check the Quint out, which is in 1994 that we own. And they were all astonished at the fantastic hydraulics, the core of the truck. They think it's incredible, including the testing agency. And again, third party. Which leads us to, you know, is it of value to invest money into that truck? My opinion, and 3 independent contractors, is yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the Quint's value to the town?
Sure.
Having a Quint versus not having a
Sure.
Quint?
No matter where I've been, everybody just with their eyes sees a 100-foot ladder, and they live in either a ranch house or, you know, a mobile home or something small. It's not about the height, it's literally about the reach. So it's not how high it goes, it's just how close you can get to somebody's house. For us, we do a lot of chimney fires, so that truck is a safety factor to every firefighter that volunteers here. We do a lot of metal roofs that you can't cut, so to have an aerial go right to the chimney, no matter how high that chimney is, and chain the chimney, check for extension, put out a chimney fire, it doesn't put firefighters on a slippery metal roof. They can work off the aerial.
Yeah.
The other point of that truck is, a Quint being 5, it's a pumper truck. So there's been several times I've been here that one pumper is out for maintenance, one pumper is actually in Freeport at a fire. The Quint, also a pumper, is protecting the entire town of Durham.
Uh-huh.
So it's not just a ladder. People say, hey, what about some of the other ladders around us? We were called this morning to New Gloucester to bring our ladder. We're one of the nearest ones for a structure fire.
They were really glad when we got it.
Others ask, hey, you're sort of surrounded by, you know, ladders, why don't you use Freeports? Freeports is only a ladder. It doesn't have a pump, it doesn't have water, it doesn't have anything that we have. So if you were to call them, I now have to take a whole pumper truck that we only have 2 and dedicate it to their ladder for use, because they don't have water and tanks and pumps. We do. We're set to go. It is a one-stop shop. If I only had a Quint, I could put out a house fire with everything. We have 35-foot ladders. It's the only one that carries the longer ladders. We have dewatering equipment. We have technical rescue equipment. It's the largest truck to carry staff and personnel to a fire. So it has seating for 7 air tanks, 8 spare bottles, all our tools and equipment. It's really the biggest toolbox we have,
Yeah.
and we use it. I know you've asked in the past how many times it runs. Every structure fire, every fire alarm, every chimney fire. So it goes out roughly, I estimated 20% of the fire calls that we get, it goes out, if not more.
And what about motor vehicle accidents?
So we don't, I did see that question. It does not, on a regular basis, go to motor vehicle accidents.
Unless you, but does it have the extrication equipment?
It does not have the extrication. It has
Okay.
special lighting, it has
I
special
see.
technical rescue, but it does not, on any frequency, go to motor vehicle accidents. We average roughly 50 car wrecks a year.
Yeah.
Over the last 5 years. And it would only go at special occasions. So if there was a fatality and we needed to block the road or set up special lighting, it has portable lighting, a generator. It's quite a tool in the toolbox.
Okay, I should know the answer to this question, but do we have like a light duty utility?
We don't.
Or so what kind of utility do we have? Do we have any utility?
No.
Okay, yeah.
No.
So this kind of serves as our utility.
It's the biggest toolbox we have.
Yeah, okay.
When you talk utility though, we'll talk sort of it's not the cheapest vehicle, but it's a utility vehicle.
Yeah.
So a pickup truck, something with a Reading body, and I'll show you pictures of that.
Yeah.
We don't have a utility. The only thing that most people can drive is the brush truck.
Yeah.
So, are regular drivers, but not engineers, they'll get in the brush truck and they'll go to a medical or a car wreck,
Okay.
that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And the brush truck is the only thing that can tow. As far as the ladder though, that's firefighter safety, things you don't even think about. When we had the, Newell Brook Road washout recently,
Mhm.
that ladder truck was part of DOT's safety plan on rescue. So OSHA requires a safety plan, and they were there for 2 weeks doing that rebuild. Our ladder truck was there for a high point, so that we could actually rappel down if somebody was injured with a Stokes basket and remove them from there.
Mhm.
So things you never even think about or see, but we use it as a rescue truck, but not what you're thinking in New Gloucester, not a
Okay.
heavy rescue,
Yeah.
a tool carrier.
I want to thank you because I know that this application has some history. And where we were just last year, at the beginning of last year, or maybe it was the year before, was with a new Quint, a sum of money representing a new Quint on the schedule. And I believe this is like an alternative that you first came up with the prior manager. And I just want to, commend you for helping us think of the, work through these kind of, and suggesting this type of approach, because I think it's an opportunity for us to, have some of these great services, but to do it at a pretty effective price point for the town.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Those ladders, the standard in the industry is 30 years, so being in 1994, we're fast approaching 30, it needs upgrades, and that's where this money's going. Lighting, reflective, and I'll show you what we need to remove from it when we go out there.
Yeah, great.
Certain items, but that's what that money is, and it is the longevity of it, we can go 7 to 10 more years with it, without an issue.
That's great, thank you.
Any more questions on the Quint rehab? No. Okay. If we get into the fire department request, it says chief's vehicle, it's really a utility, that's also a project. Currently, as you know, I'm being paid to use a small stipend, my personal pickup truck. When I signed on more than a year and a half ago, the contract was, we will start looking for a chief's vehicle, if you will. We have been trying to get creative so that everybody knows, I've tried military surplus, state surplus. The fire chiefs of Maine have a website that they can look at surplus. I've looked at business people in town to donate a truck, and have just been met with zero opportunities, really. So on this one, it's 60,000. That's really, we were looking for a used vehicle. That's not purchasing new, but these vehicles could go 10 years, and as you alluded to, the fire department, it's pride and ownership. So it gets washed, it gets cleaned, it's maintained to the highest standards that there are. I did some quick math. Federal government gives you 58.5 cents a mile, if you will. I had a flat rate of $300 a month for my vehicle. And if you start doing it out, that's actually equates to only 17 miles a day is what that is. Here's my week, and this is standard. Monday, I woke up at 4 a.m. to respond to a second alarm structure fire in Lewiston. So the engine was out of here, I got in my personal truck, lights and sirens, I was heading to Lewiston to a fire in my truck. That same day, Monday, I responded to 3 other emergency calls, again, in my truck. I understand I signed on for it, but I did sign on for a replacement, not using my personal truck. I have a 10-pound extinguisher, my gear, multiple outlets. I got CO meters, first aid equipment. I mean, I gotta remove a bunch of stuff just to go shopping some days and put it back into the truck.
Yeah.
So I responded to 3 other calls. So when you go to the Soper Road, I mean, this town's 39.4 square miles. It heads up quick. And then a car wreck on Hallowell, and then eventually at home, I responded 1 mile down the road to a medical. So every day, the truck gets used for fire department purposes, really.
Yeah.
This morning, I was awoken the same 4 a.m., and the same crew, you gotta give those guys credit, to go to New Gloucester for a station coverage. So I was heading to New Gloucester in, the truck. It would be helpful if we had a fire department truck. Nowadays, they don't want you to put your personal fire gear inside your vehicle. So when we have a structure fire, I need to use the pickup truck to throw everyone's gear because it's off gassing in the back. when we have frozen hose, when we've used equipment. A couple Sundays ago, we went to the Yarmouth Fire Academy, all the spare bottles in the back of the truck. We don't have a utility, we don't have a pickup. Somebody asked about towing, we have a boat, we have a special trailer, there's only one truck that'll even tow, and that's the brush truck. If that would be out of service or on a call, we don't have anything to tow the boat.
Yeah.
So a utility vehicle would work. I can show you some pictures, just so we're all on the same page. I've dialed out, this is the easy part.
While you're doing that, it also sounds like, I know I ventured as far as an SUV possibility, but it sounds like there's a number of reasons why having an open air pickup is necessary versus having an enclosed cab.
Yeah, for gear, off, some of the other.
Which makes, I guess, after a
You
fire.
can't tie down SCBA bottles, you don't want those rolling around. The other thing honestly is, the town insurance doesn't protect me. I mean, I signed on, it's my insurance.
Sure.
I go to almost every call in my truck, and I also go to almost every motor vehicle accident. And during those icy days, my truck blocks, I'm there a lot. So if someone were to come in and hit me, I'm on the hook for all of it. If I lose it or it's totaled, I don't have a means of travel. So what we're looking at is something twofold. It's either something like this. This just happens to be a regular cab. This is called a utility body or a Reading body.
Yeah.
I don't need, lights, but it is something identifiable. And it's not just for the chief to drive to and from. If I'm on vacation, it stays here. It doesn't get used for personal use. My wife doesn't use it. I don't go to the dump in it. It's fire department use is what it is. Or we're looking at, and this is funny, these are all out of Massachusetts. This is an extended cab version, a crew cab, because we do, when we have back-to-back calls, we start moving staff around, personnel, so I need the extra doors on fires, on woods fires, go get food, go get hose, go get more personnel, switch them out, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Or, the last one I'll show you is, it would look something like that. This one just happens to be a 2500 series crew cab pickup, again used. This one has a plow, which would help us because not only do we have 25 dry hydrants, on occasion during the winter, we've called for our own support people, our own firefighters, to plow a driveway in so we can get the ambulance up there. So if we found a used truck with a plow, that also could be.
How do those dry hydrants get plowed now? Do we have a contract with someone, or does Public Works do it?
Some are private,
Okay.
private road.
Yeah.
Some are Calvin in Public Works. Some don't get plowed at all. It really depends on which one. If it's a town-owned one, that's Calvin type. We also, on our social media, ask for local residents to help dig it up, almost like a fire hydrant, help keep it clear during the winter. If it's private, sometimes that's up to the association, and that gets dropped. So if this utility had a plow, it's not make or break, but if it had it, going in, we could plow at least a spot for a dry hydrant.
They've been doing Hunter Hill for a number of years, but I was doing it with my snowball
I see.
previous to that, for getting into the dry hydrant there.
One of the comments was just about the offset cost. If we go down this road about providing a utility or the chief's vehicle, then I wouldn't get a stipend. Over a 10-year time frame, that's a $36,000 savings. That's more than 50% of the cost of the new truck. That's what that conversation really was. So you remove the stipend for the fire chief's private vehicle, and 50% of it, in a 10-year period is actually paid for.
I think part of that, because you're gonna have operating expenses for the new vehicle.
Yep, there's
for,
fuel.
Maintenance,
Yep.
fuel, all that stuff, which then like the 58.5 cents a mile is total cost of ownership. So I guess the point is that you still have operating expenses, new expenses that you currently have the stipend for. So I don't think that that's necessarily an offset, because it'll be swapping one OpEx for another.
True. Depending on how you look at it, I can certainly absorb it in the fire department budget under maintenance, newer vehicle, you're talking fuel, usually, and then the usual oil changes. But that was just to let everybody know that the fire chief forgoes the stipend and that money at least is back in the budget.
In your mind is, and I know, this is something that I'm sure in the future you guys will be talking about, but in your mind is the road commissioner's truck a viable option? Do you think that it is in good enough condition to warrant some of these modifications, and that it would likely be reliable enough for you? Or, it appears the request, of course, you're asking for $60,000 for a used vehicle. Right. So I guess your request kind of says it, that's the route you'd like to go, is that
But I
correct?
think on what
Yeah.
you're talking about, Paul, is that the caliber of vehicle that we're actually talking about in the condition that the
Yeah.
road commission is in, and it may have the plow already,
Is that a reasonable option
Is that
for
a
you in your mind?
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the next cycle, it almost would be. After talking to Calvin and Jerry about it, that Calvin's truck is slated in a year or two for replacement.
Right,
He's plowed with it, he's sanded, that would only last 2 or 3 years, and I'd be looking at another utility vehicle after 2 or 3 years.
after 2 or 3 years.
However, if you reverse that, you give it to the fire department as a utility, the way we keep it, and not regularly plow or sand and wash it and wax it and, everything, then those last 10, 12 years.
Maybe that goes. to-
Correct, so the reverse is, after the
extra
fire
pickup.
department gets one, you could go down to Public Works.
That's really how it, because
I see,
Public Works is gonna beat it a lot.
they're gonna
more than
beat
the-
it, yeah,
So it should
Okay.
reverse
you
that,
should reverse it.
yeah.
You could also see, there's gonna be a fair amount of like equipment and outfitting to
Yeah.
set this up.
Specialized,
Yeah,
yeah.
so.
And of course, I wasn't here, but when he was set up with his stipend, was gas 270 or 410. So his 300 now is really down,
Yeah,
That's a good point.
you know what I mean? So I don't know how fair.
well, yeah, I think for a variety of reasons, I think
Right.
using a personal vehicle for all that.
I think-
And when we get done with this, you still have a few more requests to talk about here, but I think when we get done with this, from my perspective, what might be helpful is, like, I look at this and I see it's a priority 3, okay, which is lower than some of, these other things that you have here, like, for example, the Quinn. And so, maybe you could help us make, after we finish with your applications tonight, maybe you could help us make a little bit of sense out of the priorities. Of course, we can't rank everything number 1, and so it might be, helpful to us to hear from you with that regard to what's really, what are the really important items for you.
Because it's on the table, I wrote it as a 3 because diesel exhaust and the Quint,
Yeah,
that's about the membership.
yeah.
That's always my priority. I
I see.
always, as a chief, take the back seat.
Yeah.
So a utility vehicle for the chief to drive was gonna be a 3.
Yeah.
So that was my personal feeling,
Yeah,
that without tainting anybody, it's always about the membership. So
Okay.
I'm the last to eat, the last to get something new, it's not about the fire chief.
Mhm.
We need a utility vehicle, that's up to you, the budget, everyone to decide.
Yeah.
I just have it as a 3 because I didn't wanna taint anything. If we weren't getting everything, I wasn't gonna worry about myself.
Yeah.
That's where that came from.
That page
Understood.
that you showed,
Yep.
are those vehicles for sale, those examples? of-
No, those are examples, that is actually a website of every fire car in the state of Massachusetts.
Just out of curiosity, is there if we're talking used, is there a second hand with emergency vehicles that are already outfitted?
There is.
Okay, so they could likely to buy something, it isn't necessarily 60 plus, a bunch more to outfit it.
So the 60, in my opinion, was finding a used, and then 5 or 10 to outfit it. Because you're talking lights, radios, striping, it would be lettered for Durham Fire. So some departments go undercover. And I didn't want you to think it was an SUV or a command car,
Right.
like you see fire chiefs.
Yeah.
Those are city departments, those are Auburn's, Brunswick, that type of stuff. And they all have utilities, they all have multiple pickup trucks. This would be a pickup truck or a utility body for that. Command would just be multiple radios up front,
Yeah.
but not a SUV that you just stand under the hatch and talk on the radio. I'm working cheap, so
Yeah.
I need gear, access, and equipment to go.
Sounds like a practical vehicle.
But that's where the rating actually was, I didn't wanna taint. What I did add for you all, and I know you got it for the capital, the ARPA funds, we were asked on that front page of the packet, we were asked to sort of explain ARPA, and this was months ago, like how does ARPA fit into you, how does that ARPA funding? So I gave a one-page sort of dissertation, executive summary of the 40-page that's out there, that just says, ARPA is supposed to be for the original emergency services, the police and fire. Because we're not getting the ambulance runs, we're not getting the funding back, so we were losing money. After a 5-year review, COVID, we were losing money. So the fire department, the ambulance reserve, that funding that comes in, that revenue stream, was lacking. So what could have been money for a utility vehicle, they were given in ARPA funds. I suggested ARPA, and again, not up to me, because it's easier for the townspeople to go, oh, well, that's the fire department, it's ARPA funds. That's where I came up with the utility vehicle. And same thing with the Plymouth vent, the exhaust removal. But that's on the front page. Does everyone have that very first page? And if you don't, I'll give it to you. You don't have it? I got copies of it right here. I apologize.
Do you feel that the generator, you know, I noticed the generator is you've got it ranked as rated as a 2. And of course, you know, I understand that the benefit to the whole, you know, but it sounds to me like the pickup is really important too. So if you had to choose, I guess I have to ask from a practical perspective.
I'm not choosing.
You're not choosing?
I'll tell you what I did.
Yeah.
I asked every officer, fire officer, from the assistant chief on down to the lieutenant,
Yeah.
our 3 requests, generator aside. It was the Quint sort of rehab,
Yeah,
the fire utility vehicle,
I see.
and the Plymouth vents. I asked, what's important to you? And I got 3 different answers. So if you talk about an exhaust, that's cancer prevention. And we're sort of mandated to do that, and I'll show you that. So that was important to some. The Quint is such a utility vehicle specific to Durham, that was important to others. Then I had a mechanic say, you know what, chief, that utility vehicle, that car that you drive, because you go to every call, that's important because that utility goes to every call.
Yeah.
Talk about using it every day.
Yeah.
So that was important to them. I only ranked it personal opinion, and again, I don't want to benefit on anybody's back. So for me, the other 2 projects, all day long. But again, ranking it is just really opinion. It was for me. I didn't want to take away, and nor was I going to answer that, which one's more important. I guess that's up to you guys. Because in the long run, as I put in the report, I'm sorry you didn't have it, but that'll help you. You know, a diesel exhaust, especially if you can do ARPA funds, that's not sexy. Nobody can see it as you drive by. Nobody will see the exhaust hose. You don't see diesel particulates. It's a $50,000 investment. Except the firefighters see it. That's cancer prevention. That's number 1 in my book. You know, if you're gonna volunteer here for 20 years, then I can't have you come down with cancer because you did that. Or that we couldn't be better in preventing that type.
So the system that you have now, it's really just air exchange?
Yes.
It's not, you don't have a system where you have a hose you can put on the exhaust of the vehicle?
Correct, and I'll show you that.
That's
That is what a Plymouth vent is.
Okay.
Plymouth vent is actually the trade name, like a Band-Aid or
Yeah.
that type of thing, and I'll show you what that looks like. It is, currently we have, and I'll show you, a 3x3 exhaust fan. If you press the door, any one of the 6 garage doors, that fan kicks on. It just sucks whatever cold air, hot air is outside in. It takes all the exhaust that's just been blown in the bay, it runs it across every equipment, the floor, the wall, our fire gear, right into our medical equipment storage, and it just sucks it out the back, is all it does. All I have is a big fan with a 3-foot hole in the back of the building.
Yeah.
What this exhaust does, and what's mandated by OSHA and Department of Labor, is it captures it at the source, which is the tailpipe. So I'll show you the pictures. You start up a truck, it goes right out a tube, right out the back, it never exhausts into the bay. It actually rides on a tailpipe on your exhaust all the way to the outside, and then automatic releases and comes back in on a spring. You don't have to do anything, and I'll show you that. One of the questions, that I think, Paul, from you was, it is NFPA 1500, but which chapter? And that's chapter 9, after looking it up. And it actually mandates, under OSHA, that all fire departments shall contain all vehicle exhaust emissions to a level of no less than 100% effective.
Oh, okay.
So they don't even count parts per million, they don't say CO, it's 100% effective. And that's also in the International Building Code, to invest in a diesel exhaust source capture system that directly attaches to motor vehicle. And one of them actually mentions Plymouth, and I'll show you
So
what it looks like.
when might you run the vehicle inside? With, of course, the exception of starting it to leave the station and returning to the station.
Sure. We can't run it inside because you just fill the bay with carbon monoxide or diesel particulate. So if you start it up and that's an exhaust, a cold diesel engine,
Yeah.
we have to take it outside. We have to take it outside to wash it, to check it. If we do a pump test on it, every day something gets started and checked and you know, rechecked and certified and pump tested, all of it, including the ambulance. But we can't do that in the bay. We can't roll it up in the bay. We actually can't. You have to pull it out. Our problem is also with the bay heat, nights like this or colder, all that cold air, you know, comes right into the bay, and now you're using the gas to heat the bay again because you've got 0 degree air.
Up the stores.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is the picture of it right here, right? So it's just a yellow tube that goes on any exhaust. We have 6, and it goes right up into an exhaust system. Let me see if this has a video. I believe this is the video of it, which is only 2 minutes, so I have attention deficit too. This just happens to be the brand name, but it'll explain to you. You can see the yellow hose attached to the truck.
So you're warming the truck up for a fall.
Yeah, it's getting ready, it's started up, lights are on. It takes all the diesel exhaust and it sucks it right out like a vacuum.
In today's world, whether you're home or at work, you're committed to safety. And within our world, Plymouth is committed to your safety inside the fire station. Since 1988, Plymouth has installed over 50,000 systems throughout the world. The World Health Organization, NFPA 1500, NIOSH, and OSHA's determination that diesel exhaust is a hazardous material brings to the forefront the serious issue that firefighters and EMTs are exposed to cancer-causing exhaust fumes. Hazardous vehicle exhaust emissions in a fire station are a firefighter's most significant cancer health risk and can be a serious legal liability for the fire department. By eliminating this hazard from your fire station with Plymouth code-compliant vehicle exhaust capture and removal systems, not only will you see and smell the difference, you'll feel it. As an ISO, UL, CE, TÜV SÜD, and AMCA certified manufacturer, our systems work with any vehicle type. You'll find that our products are simple to use, reliable, easy to adjust, built with a high tolerance design, and feature an unparalleled list of safety features. Superior engineering and manufacturing within published code guidelines and standards are unmet by any other manufacturer in the fire vehicle exhaust industry. Our 3 unique systems ensure compatibility with all vehicle types and station designs. For continued support and superior service, Plymouth offers a worldwide network of certified.
Let me just add 2 things to that. There's a grant out there for Plymouth events, and a lot of townspeople know about it, we've talked about it. However, that's if you have overnight or sleeping quarters at your fire station, which we do not. There's no time soon that we're looking at that. There was talk of rehabbing the double wide out back in maybe offices, and then you could change some of the offices here to sleeping quarters. That's currently not in the short-term plan. That could be up to a $30,000 investment to get it up and running, to try to get a grant for $50,000. That is no guarantee. So this is where we are today. Everyone's known that we needed a diesel exhaust system. They always thought, oh, maybe a grant, maybe this, maybe if we invest in the double wide, that would work. But that's not gonna work. So here we are today. We're actually mandated by NFPA to capture the diesel exhaust. And again, when the ARPA funds came available, and it's not for me to try to figure out how to pay for it, that was a perfect example of infrastructure, public safety, use of the money.
Yeah, thank you, that was a very helpful explanation about the Glymovan. I feel like I know I learned a lot. Thank you. So I will say with regard to which funds are used in the warrant article,
Sure.
we have, I think, we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting, and I'm not sure it's within our charge to determine the source of funds. So I think that's really, still up to the selectmen. That's, our thought was that would be, in the end, that would be up to the selectmen with regard to, and the town manager, with regard to how they frame that warrant article and where the funds would come from.
Sure.
Hopefully, with consultation of the department heads. But that was really great, thank you. Okay, so,
I just got a couple of questions, Paul.
yeah, sure, on the
So,
bylaw.
the connection points to the engines are all part of the cost?
Yep, air actuated, yep.
They're actuated, are they universal system to system? In case?
Almost
you
all.
had
There are some modifications, sometimes you have to extend the tailpipe out, and they make those. Like in the ambulance, if it doesn't extend out beyond the body, they make an extension for that.
But is that part of the cost?
It was, they understand, I gave them all 6 vehicles, they looked at the, square footage. They're also out of Massachusetts, I happen to know them 3 towns away from where I was.
Yep.
And that quote, it was actually good for 2 years, because they know they do a lot of grant work, and they understand that they need to keep that, the way that municipalities work, so they need a good faith quote for long-term solutions, especially on grants. So I did confirm recently, and that's where that quote came from.
And is there any discount in putting that system in for the town insurance?
That I don't know.
That we'd have to check into.
From like, what's the word I'm looking for? Disability type, clauses, do we get any discounts? in
Workers'
regards-
comp, like
Yeah,
workers' comp,
or
rating.
Sure.
something like that.
Would it
Is
help
there
us
a
in our
rate?
workers'
Does it
comp
help?
rating?
Does it help us with our ability to?
I
I
can
mean, it might be a
check.
small amount, I'm just.
Right,
just
I can
asking.
check. I don't know if it's gonna do anything with workman's comp, because everybody, all the employees have a code, and it's just that's based on our mod rate.
On history.
Yeah, history of
Yeah,
claims,
history.
that sort of thing, but I can,
Is there any, I'm just wondering what kind of
Sure.
value could be
Yeah.
there, because it is a personal safety thing for
right.
employees per se, right?
What it does
It's
do.
like your house insurance when you live next to the fire department. which is cheap.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
I totally get what you're saying.
What it does do, Joe, is if it prevents one member from getting cancer from the diesel exhaust,
Yeah.
then we're ahead of the game.
Oh, I get
on
it,
the
no,
price.
I get it, I just trying to put more.
Sure, look, again, I
Make
understand
every little bit
it's
of
not a
savings.
sexy product that people can see from their house, but it's,
Exactly.
price of doing business is really
But I
what it is.
see the value is certainly there, it's, yeah. Definitely.
Just the assessor, she answered the questions, and,
Yeah.
I mean, I can try to, if you have more questions than what she answered, I can try to answer them.
Was that a transport?
You ready to move on to the
Yeah, no.
assessors?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So let's keep going. And, let's see, yeah, she did a pretty good job answering those questions, I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty, for me, it was pretty, her answers were pretty self-explanatory. it sounded like there were, it's not only the reason we're waiting until 2025 is twofold, that we need the money to pay for the revow, and that there's not a company available to complete the project.
Yeah,
There
they're
may
pretty,
be kind of a dearth of
yeah. it's-
companies.
And Donna's explanation, there are many towns going, and cities going through this reevaluation process, so they're hard to lock in right now. So if we was to do this, we would have to try to get go out RFP,
Yeah,
request for proposal, see when they could do it. But she's thinking, she, in her email, this was 139,000 back in 22, was it? Something like that, she said in her answer.
2010.
Yeah. So she's thinking, it's gonna be somewhere between 150 and 200.
do you know if her, I don't know, her company, what the capacities of her company is, if it's just her, or if she has others, and whether this is work that her company does also, and that she might be bidding on?
She's independent.
Right, well, of course, but do you think that, is this, I know a lot of assessors, they,
Farming out to other people.
well, know that they actually, bid on the revals too.
Oh,
They do-
she wants independent.
She wants independent.
Yeah, she does not,
Okay.
because she does the taxes and everything, so she wants it to be completely independent.
I see, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's almost like, that would be almost like the fox watching the hen house.
Yeah,
So-
sure, close to the point.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so she definitely wants it to be independent.
That's where she's coming from.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where,
Yeah, that's helpful to know, thanks.
yeah.
Okay, and so it sounds like that, it's really important because, as she says, our ratio is now 80%. And so, we're getting pretty close to that
We are,
threshold.
we are, and we've talked about it, and this last inflationary period where the prices just skyrocketed.
Yeah,
The idea of doing it too in 2025, hopefully the market settles out and calms down, so they're not, so, do it at peak time, you don't really,
yeah,
even though you can adjust the million accordingly, it's she just wants it to be fair and equitable across.
absolutely,
So
absolutely,
that's
it's
a good
really
time.
important.
And keeping in mind too, when you evaluate these, we voted last year to put 60,000 aside to do a market adjustment, and that didn't get done, so the town's gonna have to vote to maybe either take that, and it went into the operational budget. So maybe we vote to take that out, make that the first installment and put it in reserve, or maybe you do another 60 this time, so you got 120 in there to get started. Next 24, you have 180 or whatever, and then go through that process, but it's time.
Yeah.
She-
Yeah, it's time, we don't have any other choice.
Right, and there's
Yeah.
probably a lot that's been done that hasn't been evaluated.
Yeah, and, again, it's not a question of, raising taxes, it's a question of fairness and
Right.
distribution of taxes.
Absolutely, yeah, excellent. Well said, because we don't want them thinking out there that this is a reason to raise taxes, which it's not at all.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, very good. Any other questions about the revow?
Can I circle back on the generator, the fire department?
Sure.
So I'm just kind of thinking through the question that you had about priority.
Yeah,
So on the generator, obviously it's not ideal to not have power, but if you don't get funding for the generator, I guess, how does that impact you when you don't have power?
I see that as two questions. If we don't replace it this year, then I think we just spin the wheel, 20-year-old generator, we just spin the wheel as far as maintenance, breakdowns, whatnot.
Sure.
If we lose power here, then I can barely get my trucks out. I have to manually open the doors, nobody's home, I'm using pipe poles to get it 12 feet up. I know we talk about like heating and cooling centers, and that might be Eureka. this is still a heating center, it's also our emergency operations center. The entire hub of the town is actually through the fire department. I'm the emergency manager, we have a redundant system for our radios and dispatch. We actually have a battery backup because the county radio system is out of here. So they have, on top of our tower, and they also use the generator. So they have a backup to the backup, which is batteries, just in case, but they only go so long. So if the fire department loses power for any prolonged period during those ice storms or whatnot, that's a serious, emergency to ourselves, it really is.
The current generator powers the building, but then wouldn't like for the, exhaust system and stuff. anything
Correct,
additional.
it's not big enough to do that, that's why they wanted to upgrade it. I told them in the future, there could be exhaust, which is electrical, and then whether there's a building renovation, second floor, whatever comes down the pipe, you certainly want it in place that it's large enough, the first time.
Yeah. Is it an option, you know, sometimes we have to think about, solving these problems, these important requests over a series of years.
Sure.
Is it possible to take kind of a stepwise approach and do the ply movement, this year, but not have the ply movement hooked up to the generator?
Correct.
And then replace the generator in a subsequent year?
We could work with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's getting most everything you need, and certainly cancer prevention, and then you just pick your poison as far as which generators you replace.
Yeah.
Again, this one's older, but the town hall is family.
Well, but then the other side of that coin is, as you said, this is the emergency operations center. Town hall, the power goes down, it's very disruptive. It's
Yeah.
extremely disruptive, but it's not life or death.
No, I just sent my crew home.
Yeah,
Again, I think that's what you've all taken on, it is really, I can give you a priority, but that's just an opinion. It's really what you've all taken on, that's the important task that you have,
yeah.
is which side works best.
And it's really helped us to hear from you. And Jerry. All right, very good. Other questions? Okay, so, I think what we wanna do here, if this is okay with, Jerry and the chief, is just briefly talk about scoring, and then what we could do is maybe we could adjourn. And then if the chief would like to show us equipment.
Sure, real
we
quick,
could
just
do
a
that
field trip.
after we adjourn.
I think it'll help.
Can I ask
Good.
one
Yeah,
more
I think-
question?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
please,
Yeah, go.
please do,
Yeah.
please do.
So can you just go back to the Quint rehab, so still trying to figure out in my mind what I think, based on what you've said, is sort of priority, if we have to narrow it down. It's operational currently?
That's a difficult question. It failed its state inspection.
Oh.
Monday, it's scheduled to go in. It failed due to electrical. So, there's relay switches, again, we're dealing with just about 30-year-old technology, with electrical. Everything's a home run, it's maxed out with electrical, it needs it to be gone through. So we'll get it roadworthy, it'll drive over to Auburn, but in order to get a sticker, there has to be some cost and maintenance involved next week.
But that's not the.
That's not the rehab. The rehab, though, would prevent that. It would replace the old components of that. Not the pump, not the aerial. It would certify certainly hydraulics, change out hoses if it's leaking. You're talking 30-year-old lighting plant and a diesel generator on it, all 30 years old. So you can either downgrade to a smaller generator, go to LED lights that draw no power, that type of stuff. Take care of some of any little rust parts, some paint, really bring it up so that it continues for 7 to 10 years. And again, I think it'll help when we go put eyes on it. I'll show you what needs to be removed from it and why, professionally removed and whatnot. But I think you'll see that for a 30-year-old truck, it's in pristine condition, and there's a reason. It's the dedication of the staff.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so Scoring, I brought a sample scoring sheet here, and, let's see, I said I'm down to Michelle, and I've got also a sample here for you guys.
Thank you, if you could share that.
So, first of all, the idea here, just as a reminder, is that every committee member that we go off, after we have read the applications, the plans, the schedules, heard from the department heads, done our research collectively, we all go off individually and we score each project with this sheet. So we're going to, also for the benefit of Pete, so we fill out one of these forms for each project. And you'll see that it's, and you've probably already seen this because, you demonstrated earlier or mentioned earlier that you looked at the policy. So in the policy, we have this section that's criteria. And each one of these, for example, under general planning, conforms with comp plan. So there's more information in the policy, like what that criteria is. And, I will say these are imperfect, and we've talked about this before, and it's not that, we're looking to change them. But certainly, if we talk about the policy and any tweaks we can do to make it more effective, we can think about that. But the way to think about this, in my mind, is it's kind of like a job interview rubric. You do this, you fill it out, you assign scores, and then you look at it all collectively and kind of in your mind you say, does this really make sense? Did these projects score like I thought they should, and like I think the priorities are? And so, but this is to help guide us, but it's not solely an analytical process. You really need to think about beyond the score, what you feel is the priorities are based on the information that we've all been exposed to here over these meetings. And if you need to go back and make some adjustment or think about it, because it's one of the kind of the art of this is to be consistent, in how you score. And sometimes that's not easy across projects because you're scoring very different things for their very different projects. And then after that, after we've scored them all, we send them off to Michelle, who does a wonderful job of collating them all and coming up with a rank. And then after Michelle's done that, she lets us know and we all get back together for our final meeting to make a recommendation to the selectmen. So that's pretty much the process from here out. Any questions regarding the scoring?
And do all of you have Excel? Because I can give you a template and then you can just key in everything and it makes it easier because then I can just pop it in.
If you could send us a template, yeah,
I
that'd be
would love
wonderful.
to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What a great suggestion.
So let me work that up and get it all streamlined
Yeah.
and send it off.
That'd be
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah, oh, that'd be wonderful, thank you. Okay, and we probably should discuss dates here briefly. And if you guys could remind me, our next meeting is scheduled for,
I think we got it in a couple of weeks.
is it the, I think it's further out than
A little
that.
further out?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is 20th.
that's what I thought, I didn't see it on my calendar. I put it on it.
Yeah, 20.
Still got it, Jerry, still got it.
20th at 16th.
All
The
right.
looks are waning, but the memory's still there.
Yeah, still works here.
Okay, yep. Works for me. Okay, so let's work backwards. If we want to meet on the 20th, when do we need to have scores to Michelle by?
And we'll hear Michelle, when do we need
What do you
to-
think, Michelle? What do you think?
I'll do the hard work before I get you the template, so after that, in theory, if I do it right, once you get it to me, I just pop it in and I'm good to go.
Friday the
So
16th?
I will try to get you everything, I'll, work it this weekend. Where are we today? get it to you by this weekend, and then, yeah, you have it to me by the end of the following week.
Okay,
Okay.
right, okay,
16.
yep. So the template's back to Michelle by the 16th. I would also encourage you to keep your applications or your scoring sheets beyond that, and they're all gonna go to Jerry at the end of the day. And they usually go into a file, so that if a, if a department head or someone wants more information about, they are public, the
Records.
scoring sheets,
Right.
it's public record,
Right.
yeah. So, if somebody wants more information about, well, why did this rank higher, they could actually, go into town hall and look at those sheets if they wanted to. And Jerry can put it with his annual CIP material, just maybe in that notebook that says CIP 2023, just stick those scores in there with it, they got it right there.
And for everybody's edification, what you'll find is that even if I vote a 1 and she votes a 2 and he votes a 3 on something, what you find is, in the end, they all basically line up in
They all line
the
up.
order that we
Yeah.
all thought they did in our own scoring methodology,
Yeah,
so.
That's awesome.
So it's interesting to look at the sheets and then you go back and say, yeah, that's exactly how I expected it to line up.
Yeah,
And-
or maybe it's kind of like, well, this is
Might flip.
exactly what I
Yeah.
wanted,
Yeah.
but this seems to really make sense.
Yeah, exactly. It
There's
has,
So-
some that were really close in scores, which is kind of surprising when you think about everything we're
right,
scoring it in
exactly,
numbers.
exactly, how you.
Yeah.
Almost like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple.
Yeah, so it's gonna be really exciting to have a new member on board.
I'll miss that plan all the time. I'll be the outlier.
It
I
is
love
kind
it.
of interesting how this process works out.
Well, if you have less than 5 minutes, if we can go on a field trip.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so,
I think it'll
first
help.
I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Yep,
Make motion to
Okay, second.
adjourn.
second.
All those in favor?
All in favor?